Ric Flair, Antonio Inoki, two of the greatest international superstars in a worldwide wrestling extravaganza. For the first time ever on pay-per-view, it's a spectacular one-time global event. Collision in Korea.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Collision in Korea. I'm Eric Bischoff, joined by Mike Tenay and Kazuo Ishikawa from Tokyo, Japan. Mike, certainly glad to have you here. I know you've got your finger on the pulse, so to speak, of international wrestling.
Well, thanks very much, Eric. An incredible display of international wrestling talent, as well as so many diverse styles, all topped by the first ever historic meeting between the Nature Boy Ric Flair and Antonio Inoki. Mr. Ishikawa, if you will, lend some insight into the political intrigue behind this event.
Well, we have the Americans, we have the Japanese, and Pyongyang, North Korea. It is wrestling diplomacy at its best.
I think that's a key thing. You know, there's a lot of government officials here from North Korea, certainly Antonio Inoki representing Japan. Great to be here with Muhammad Ali. It's an exciting event indeed, and this is really a first ever when you have professional wrestling, the United States, Japan, in North Korea. It's an exciting event, and what do you say? Let's get down to it. Let's get down to the ring and kick off the action. Collision in Korea. Well, Mike, one of the things that I think you and a lot of the people watching us here on pay-per-view are going to notice is that the Korean fans, much like fans of Japan, are very polite. Add to the fact that the Koreans here really aren't familiar with professional wrestling. It's been a long, long time since they've seen anything like that. So it's going to be very interesting to see how they react to the athletes.
Well, I'm sure there's an educational process, as in anything, but what a way to open up the show. We're talking about nothing but offense, 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 as Too Cold Scorpio, the former star with World Championship Wrestling, is first in the ring. His opponent in this opener is none other than Wild Pegasus, Chris Benoit, the Canadian. These two men competing for the top spot over in New Japan in the junior heavyweight division. They have formed a tag team in previous occasions. They have also competed against each other on many occasions as well, Eric.
Now, I guarantee you one thing. The Koreans have never seen any athlete get into the ring with an entrance like that. And you have to remember, this is a communist country. Everything is controlled by the government. There's only a couple of radio stations. All of the music is government endorsed, almost marching, inspirational type music. You won't hear any rock and roll. You won't hear anything in the top 40 in North Korea. So they're getting a look at something here that they have probably, most of these people in Pyongyang have never, ever seen. This is, and I've got to point this out, this is one of the most closed societies on the face of the earth. And that's one of the things that makes this event so unique.
And Wild Pegasus, Chris Benoit, makes his way into the ring to oppose Scorpio. A lot of interesting parallels between these two wrestlers. Both of them were trained in the New Japan dojo several years ago. They're both in their late 20s. Of course, Pegasus, Benoit from Canada, Too Cold Scorpio, longtime star with World Championship Wrestling, and now making his way international scene with the New Japan promotion.
Chris Benoit, a high-flying athlete, of course, that can be said as well of Too Cold Scorpio, a man who has really staked his reputation on his aerial attack. And it looks like we're going to get the bell. In the background, you saw Mr. Baijo of the New Japan Wrestling Organization, an individual both Mr. Ishikawa and I have gotten to know very, very well. And it's Too Cold Scorpio, the aggressor in this match. He's got Benoit backed up, and a little bit of hostility between these two athletes.
As we mentioned earlier, the two have been competing on a regular basis in New Japan. They're trying to gain that top spot for the junior heavyweight division. Recently, Benoit was the winner of the Super J Cup tournament. That's about a 3-week-long event that New Japan promotion runs every year. Benoit has won it in the past and was again victorious in 1995.
Too Cold Scorpio, again, controlling the action with the arm. Benoit so quick on his feet. Nice reversal into a top wrist lock. And Kazuo, this is the type of wrestling action that we see typically in Japan. You and I have traveled to Japan on several different occasions. And you see this type of wrestling a lot that we're seeing out of Benoit, out of the Japanese wrestlers. But again, there you get a look at Too Cold Scorpio, so quick on his feet, so agile, and excellent timing.
Well, I think the Korean people, as you can hear them in the background now, is starting to appreciate the athleticism of the American wrestlers. But of course, we haven't seen the Japanese wrestler yet. So.
Enough already with the Japanese wrestlers. You're going to get your fair shot. We're all going to get our opportunity to see the Japanese wrestlers. We all kind of know where you stand on that point. Of course, Benoit from Canada, Too Cold Scorpio from the United States. Benoit probably, and I don't know, Mike, if this is safe to say or not, it appears that he may be the stronger of the two, at least in his upper body. If you look at Scorpio's lower body, his legs, quads, hamstrings seem to be a little thicker. He might have the advantage there.
I would agree there, and I think that as the people can see now, Benoit will attempt to get out of this with a bridge maneuver, and does. Interesting to note that both of these men have wrestled extensively internationally, as well as in the United States. They've competed in Mexico, Japan, all around the world. A lot of European action for both men as well.
Here you're getting a tremendous look at the strength of Too Cold Scorpio. Lower back. Monkey flip up and over goes Benoit. Benoit holds on, tries to reverse the action. Too Cold Scorpio in a lot of trouble here. Referee in position, only a 2 count. And it's reversed now. Benoit, both of these athletes going back and forth. A lot of near misses here.
Some of our viewers might remember back in November of last year, a WCW pay-per-view event called When Worlds Collide. And on that show, Pegasus, Benoit, and Too Cold Scorpio were tag team partners.
Too Cold Scorpio now. Blows to the midsection, follows it up with a forearm to the back. Chop to the top of the chest. Benoit in a little bit of trouble. Back in the corner. Irish whip all the way across the ring. And it's Too Cold Scorpio up and over. But again, tremendous agility. Catches the ring apron. Able to maintain his balance. Comes off the top turnbuckle. Up and over and right on top. Benoit's in trouble. 2 count here.
Spectacular moonsault attempt by Scorpio. Gets only a 2 count, and there's the super kick.
The martial arts attempt by obviously American who haven't studied very much of martial arts. But apparently the Canadian who had probably less knowledge of martial arts worked on that.
It was indeed a standing sidekick to the top of the chest that caught Benoit dead in his tracks. Benoit, as you can see, fairly winded here and very vulnerable. High-risk maneuver doesn't pay off for Too Cold Scorpio. And you can hear the Koreans, they're beginning to get into the action. Very impressed, I'm sure, with the aerial attack of Too Cold Scorpio.
Now we'll see if Benoit can follow up the miss by Scorpio on the high-risk maneuver. And he does with a knee to the midsection.
Knee to the midsection did the trick. Caught Too Cold Scorpio coming off the ropes. And it's been estimated by different people that when an athlete's coming off the ropes like that, he's coming off at about 25, 30 miles an hour. So a knee to the midsection at that rate of speed in that short distance will definitely take the wind out of your sails. And that won't help much either.
We'll see Benoit try and wear down Scorpio at this point and use a high-powered maneuver like a power bomb. That's usually one of the best finishers for Benoit out of his repertoire, and we'll see if he's able to do it against Scorpio.
You know, one of the things as we kind of set the stage for this entire event, we had an opportunity to visit some of the historic Korean monuments and sites. Nice spin wheel kick attempt there. Drop kick by Benoit sends Too Cold Scorpio outside of the ring. Boy, he nailed him with that one, Mike.
He sure did. Caught him right on the button. Scorpio now trying to regroup on the apron while Benoit follows up with a right hand to the head.
As we talked about in trying to set the stage for this historic event, so many people in Korea were aware of this event. It's been on all of the government-owned television stations. It's been in all the newspapers. And interestingly enough, they replayed a lot of, nice standing switch there by Benoit, but Too Cold Scorpio counters with an elbow. And another standing side kick, this time right on the chin. And I think even Mr. Ishikawa would have to give credit where credit is due there with that side kick.
I think his balance was a little.
Well, you are tough. You are tough. Benoit's in a little bit of trouble here. Notice how he kept kicking. He kept his opponent off balance. He didn't let Too Cold Scorpio maintain control. Devastating, devastating pile driver.
Beautiful move on the reversal by Benoit. Now he's going to try to take advantage by going to the top ropes for a high-risk maneuver of his own.
He does, and Benoit off that top turnbuckle, hooks the leg, referee's in position, and you have your winner as we open up Collision in Korea. Tremendous event between two fine competitors. The United States, Too Cold Scorpio, Canada's Chris Benoit, and your winner, in the opening bout. Collision in Korea is Chris Benoit.
Well, we see the referee now attempting to revive Scorpio post-match, and it was Pegasus with the victory with that flying headbutt off the top rope. Here's a look at the replay. There you see the reversal by Benoit, and he stops Scorpio dead in his tracks, and now follows it up with this inverted pile driver, crashing him head first into the mat. Benoit to the top rope. That flying headbutt off the top rope and on his way to victory. Chris Benoit, as we see it now, scaling the ropes and on the top rope for the flying headbutt. It connects, and the cover, Chris Benoit victorious over Too Cold Scorpio in the opener at Collision in Korea.
A lot more action still to come here on this historic pay-per-view, to be sure. Next up, as we come to you from Pyongyang, North Korea, Tokumitsu Ishizawa, a freestyle wrestler from Japan, young athlete, a lot of promise, highly regarded by the principals in New Japan Pro Wrestling. His opponent, Yuji Nagata, a man with a tremendous Greco-Roman wrestling background. And Mike, I think this is going to provide the basis for a very interesting matchup.
Certainly will, Eric. Some amazing parallels between the two as we wait for Nagata to come to the ring. Almost a mirror image, not only facially and in looks between the two wrestlers, but also in terms of background. Both men are 26 years old. Both men have been wrestling for 3 years as a professional. They both weigh just over 200 pounds. They're competing and fighting for a position in the junior heavyweight division of New Japan. And now we see Nagata making his way to the ring with a jump over the top rope.
Kazuo, take a look at the two athletes. Size them up for me, if you will. Physically, what do you see different between the two?
Well, it looked like Nagata has a couple more pounds on Ishizawa. But here we go. We finally get to see some fine Japanese athlete as professional wrestling was meant to be.
Well, that remains to be seen.
Interesting to note the amateur background of both these gentlemen. Ishizawa, the strong amateur wrestling background in freestyle. Conversely, Nagata specializes in the Greco-Roman. Also, Ishizawa has been trained in submission wrestling as well, so we'll see how that pays off.
The referee begins the action. Both men shake hands. And we're off and running from Pyongyang. And I was going to talk about the kicks. Back leg round kick here.
Nagata has practiced some martial arts back, and he has studied some Okinawan karate.
Yeah, that will be Nagata's major offensive. He specializes in those martial arts kicks.
You saw Ishizawa there with a couple switches. And now controlling the action with the arm. Nice reversal by Nagata. Nagata now controlling the action. Both men onto the ropes. Referee calling for the break. Both wrestlers break clean.
But you can see the technique is much more superior.
I don't know if it's superior or not. We're early on in the match. One of the things I did notice is that both wrestlers broke cleanly on the break. Both wrestlers shook hands. I saw some good sportsmanship there, but I would say it's a little bit of a stretch to say it's superior technique.
Well, when was the last time you saw good sportsmanship? American.
We'll talk more about that later.
This is Nagata in control now, not only with the arm lock, but also using the knee right across the face of Ishizawa.
It looks to me like Ishizawa's in better condition. I think if this match goes probably beyond the 15 or 18-minute mark, Ishizawa's probably going to have the edge. If Nagata can control the pace in the short term, if he can control the action the way he wants to, and it looks like his style is a very physical style so far, then the advantage will probably go to him. Nice hip toss takedown. Ishizawa in trouble here. He's looking for a way out of it. Nagata able to control the action with the armbar. Notice how he keeps his hips right over his opponent's chest.
These two youngsters are really considered the future of the New Japan Pro Wrestling organization, and a victory here for either one would elevate their status within the promotion.
You see that the guard position by Ishizawa, and he's got the arm of Nagata. He's working on his submission hold.
More of a defensive maneuver here, it looks like, out of Ishizawa, with the leg up around the neck, trying to keep some distance between himself and Nagata. Nagata, of course, trying to work his way in, works down on the leg, and now it's Ishizawa. Looked like he was going to go for the crossface. Oh, and you can see it right there. Nagata again going for the submission.
Ishizawa, actually a protege of Antonio Inoki, who we will see later at the collision in Korea against Ric Flair.
You know, one of the other things that we're going to be able to bring to the people watching this tremendous pay-per-view, and again, it's hard really to explain the significance of this, the historical significance, the cultural significance, because very few Americans have ever been in North Korea. You know, I think if you look at Jimmy Carter, unfortunately, two helicopter pilots who ended up there accidentally, and a few other statesmen, along with CNN, there are very few Americans that have ever been here before, other than myself and Muhammad Ali, and I'll tell you what, it's overwhelming, the cultural exposure that we've been exposed to here since we've arrived.
Well, you know, Eric, many of the North Korean general population have never seen Americans since 1953.
No, and of course, you know, I had the opportunity. One of the mistakes I made was leaving my hotel without my interpreter. I went for about a 5-mile run, and I'll tell you what, I felt like I had 3 heads running around the streets of Pyongyang. But right now, we've got some action here. Ishizawa, he's going at it.
Putting the boots to Nagata. Attempt to follow up with a nice forearm.
Ishizawa looks like Nagata got Ishizawa's attention. He's a little bit more aggressive here. Back leg round kick attempt by Nagata. He misses, and Ishizawa moves in. Nice move.
Submission.
Too close to the ropes.
Beautiful roll through into an armbar, but as you said, the ropes causes the break.
Now, as you were saying about sportsmanship, they were on the ropes there. Ishizawa, maybe his emotions he was already off the rope.
It was a continuation of the match. You don't understand the flow of the match.
Oh, I get it. Boot to the back of the head, back leg round kick to the front chest, another back leg round kick. Series of 3 back leg round kicks. Did not get his hips into those kicks, but that's a vicious submission hold, and that didn't take long. That did not take long at all. Your winner, Yuji Nagata, back leg round kicks and all, with the win over young Tokumitsu Ishizawa.
Plenty of offense by Nagata at the end. The match took actually less than 5 minutes, as you mentioned, Eric. Very quick. And once he got the face-lock submission on him, it was all over.
Here is a look at some of the action that took place prior to the match. And again, you know, it's important to point out that the North Korean government spent nearly a year planning for this spectacular event. They really wanted to put on a show and show the entire world what the culture of North Korea looks like, and you're getting a good look at some of the excitement that we were exposed to here in North Korea. We're going to be showing you more of that. All right, next up, tag team action. And this should be a great match, Mike.
It sure should. We see Hiro Saito make his way to the ring, accompanied by his tag team partner, Masa Chono. The two have formed a regular tag team for about the past year within the ranks of New Japan.
Chono, not one of the friendliest individuals I've come to know in Japan.
Interesting background on Masa Chono. I think a lot of our viewers might be familiar with him as a former NWA World's Champion. He actually had a very friendly rivalry, so to speak, over the New Japan Promotions World's title, which is the IWGP Championship, with both the Great Muta and Shinya Hashimoto in recent years. But it seems that lately he's developed a bad attitude and has changed his style quite a bit more aggressively. We see Hiro Saito being introduced now.
Well, I think Mr. Chono's a little angry about not getting opportunity overseas and
Making their way now to the ring, El Samurai and Tadeo Yasuda, a former sumo wrestler, made his way to New Japan Pro Wrestling.
He is new to pro wrestling, as you mentioned, accomplished sumo for 15 years, but actually in his first year as a professional wrestler with New Japan. Samurai gained his reputation in the junior heavyweight ranks of this organization through a series of matches with Jushin Thunder Liger. Samurai is just 28 years old, but has already had 9 years under his belt as a professional wrestler.
You know, one of the interesting things here, Mike, is you look at Yasuda and you realize that here's a guy with a sumo background, 15 years, and in Japan, sumo is the #1 sport.
well, it's a traditional sport too.
It's a very traditional sport. It's the athletes in sumo are highly regarded athletes. And now we're seeing an athlete making a transition into professional wrestling. Not unlike a lot of NFL players who have tried to make the transition to professional wrestling in the United States. And it's a very difficult transition. And I think it's fair to say that Yasuda is having a very difficult time here. He's doing well, but I'm sure it's not as easy as he thought 14 years ago when he was still in sumo.
As you mentioned with the NFL players, I think that sumo background probably got Yasuda's foot in the door, so to speak, with the New Japan organization, but now he has to prove it in the ring.
Hey, it's a whole different game. The rules change real quickly once you step inside of the ring. There's a lot of money at stake. Tag team action coming your way. Chono and Yasuda, the first man in. Yasuda obviously with a height, reach, leverage advantage. Chono with experience and aggressiveness in his favor. Which of the two teams, Mike, have been together longer?
Obviously, the team of Chono and Saito have been a regular tag team for a little over the past year. Sort of a new pairing with Samurai and Yasuda. To my knowledge, one of the first times that they've actually teamed together.
Coming up in just a little bit, we're going to give you a glimpse of the Nature Boy, Ric Flair, WCW's own, and the greatest from the boxing world, Muhammad Ali, as they toured Korea. And I'll tell you what, it doesn't matter where you go, Muhammad Ali is still one of the most recognized athletes and personalities on the face of this earth, and a tremendous, tremendous gentleman and a tremendous athlete. Interesting here, Mike, you know, Greco-Roman knuckle lock in our vernacular, you would assume would have the advantage in that given his height and reach advantage. But Chono not backing down and out. Chono now working on the wrist and the elbow.
Chono followed up that strength test with the wrist lock, as you mentioned, and now Hiro Saito goes to the ropes and comes off right on the arm of Yasuda, and Hiro Saito now trying to follow up on that advantage.
Nice takeover. Hiro Saito, no relation to Masa Saito, who we will probably be seeing here later on. And again, we're bringing you a compilation of 2 days of events. The first day, there were over 150,000 people on hand. The second day, I believe the number when it was Ric Flair, WCW versus New Japan's Antonio Inoki, over 190,000 people. So collectively over the 2 days, over 300,000 people watching this event. So you're going to see some matches from the first evening, some matches from the second evening. So if you see a wrestler twice, you'll know why.
And we will see Yasuda later in the card. He'll be facing Road Warrior Hawk.
Absolutely. Hawk, of course, all of us coming to know very well here in WCW. One of the athletes able to make his way from New Japan and compete within the ranks of WCW, which is not an easy thing to do. Yasuda here is showing me a little bit more offense than I thought he would. He has a tendency to be a very defensive wrestler.
Now the size advantage shifts to the Chono and the Saito team as El Samurai is tagged in. Samurai, as we mentioned earlier, really accomplished junior heavyweight. He's a former IWGP junior heavyweight champion. He defeated Jushin Thunder Liger for that title. He has a judo and amateur wrestling background as well.
Seeing some right forearms out of El Samurai. Immediately goes down below. Scoop, slam, leg drop across his opponent. El Samurai with about a 1.5 count. Referee was right there. El Samurai just does not have his man, Saito, fatigued enough. You're going to cover a man like that, you've got to have him beat. You've got to have him physically beat. You've got to have him emotionally beat.
That interesting name combination of El Samurai came when Samurai traveled to Mexico, and it was at that point that he became a masked wrestler.
Chono coming off the ropes with a vicious boot. And I believe that caught El Samurai right at the top of the chest. Might have got a little bit of the chin. El Samurai shaking it off. Samurai coming off the ropes, sets up. Chono telegraphed the back body drop. El Samurai trying to take advantage of it.
Chono has words for Yasuda there.
Yeah, a little preoccupied with the man who's not in the ring, and that could be a big mistake. He's in no man's land here. El Samurai taking advantage of the count. Irish whip, and I don't know if it's called an Irish whip in Japan or not, but that's how we know it here.
Yasuda follows up with the scoop slam and misses an elbow by a mile.
Yeah. Bad choice of offense there. Takes a couple of vicious boots to the back of the head by Chono. Saito tags in. Referee starts the count. Double Irish whip off the ropes. Double clothesline. Down goes Yasuda, and it probably took both of them to get him down. Yasuda's a big man. Oh!
There's a senton by Saito, and we'll see if he can follow up with a pinfall.
Big difference in height here. Saito's got his work cut out for him. Yasuda does a smart thing, uses his size, drives his man into the corner, makes a tag. Samurai, fresh man, comes in, and he's working over the solar plexus. Irish whip against Saito. Knew exactly what he was doing. Looked like he was going to come off the ropes about 60 miles an hour, hit the brakes. El Samurai set up for the drop kick. Nobody there. And now it is all Saito. Samurai in trouble, Mike.
Chance now for Saito to follow up, and he tags into Chono. Chono actually trained for professional wrestling by the legendary Lou Thez, and Thez taught Chono his favorite finishing hold, the STF.
Now Chono can't really get a good look at it from this vantage point. Looks like a legal hold, and it is. Referee looking very closely, making sure that it's not across the throat. Notice how Chono's putting all of the weight in the small of the back as he's really putting the upward pressure on that chin lock.
And really rearing back now on the chin lock, as you mentioned.
Chono very aggressive. Samurai in a lot of trouble here. I think that move speaks for itself.
Well, we'll see if he's able to recover at this point. It looks like Chono and Saito definitely in the driver's seat as Saito gets tagged in.
Kazuo Ishikawa, tell me, is this an example of the textbook technical wrestling that we had talked about earlier, or is this just a downright street brawl?
Well, I think it's very simple that Chono is punishing El Samurai for being in Mexico for so long. It's real obvious. It's obvious. You can't see that? He's being punished for going south of the border. Or you guys go south of the border.
Yasuda now, again, taking advantage of his height. That's a perfect example of an athlete knowing his assets. Yasuda's so tall, able to take his man up. And here you go. Now we're going to get a little bit of a look at the sumo attack.
The sumo slap where they try to drive the people out of the ring.
Important tag there made to the freshman Chono. We'll see if Yasuda can continue the offense.
And the sumo slaps.
Irish whip into the corner. Chono's, boy, he ate it. I thought he was going to get out of that corner, but he took the whole thing. Body slam, and again, Yasuda taking advantage of his size, and it looks like Yasuda definitely in control of the action, makes the tag off. Comes El Samurai. It is all El Samurai. 1, 2 and a half.
Samurai with the first chance for him to show some of the aerial tactics, the offensive play.
Heel giri. Heel kick. Which is one of the most effective martial arts moves. You don't
kick to the groin.
Well,
highly technical move, a kick to the groin.
Going to be difficult for Samurai to recover, it looks like, at this point.
Kick right to the face. Saito going after Yasuda outside of the ring, trying to prevent any outside interference, which I guess is not a bad move. Legal man in the ring. Chono coming off the top rope, shoulder tackle. He might have got a little bit of jaw with that one. And that is it. Your winners, tag team action. Chono, Saito.
Eric, it looks like it was simply a case of the ring experience of this tag team, Chono and Saito. Too much for Samurai and Yasuda to contend with, and Chono and Saito victorious.
Polite bow, not wrestler.
Yeah, it was a very polite bow after he kicked his opponent 3 times in the groin. I guess that makes up for it. I don't know. One of those cultural things
That was
you just
a
have
technique.
to adjust to. Yeah, it was a technique, all right. I've seen it before in the streets of Chicago. A small town in Illinois. Yasuda disappointed, El Samurai disappointed, but they have to be grateful for the opportunity to perform here in front of a very appreciative audience.
Yasuda should get
Let's take a look at the replay. Chono with the snap mare sends Samurai over. Bounces off the ropes and big boot to the head. Chono to follow it up from there. Going up to the top rope. shoulder block off the top. Nailed Samurai right in the chest and the head. He follows that up by rolling him over, hooking the leg, and the team of Masa Chono and Hiro Saito victorious in Collision in Korea.
Tremendous event, and as I said, Ric Flair, Muhammad Ali had a chance to take a look at the sights and the sounds of North Korea. We've got women's action coming up. And just a few moments ago, you saw some sights and sounds of North Korea. Well, now the North Koreans are going to get some sights and sounds of the Japanese wrestling women. And this is going to be great.
Yeah, and I think it will be a terrific introduction as well for our American viewers. We see the tag team of Mariko Yoshida in the white outfit leading the way to the ring, accompanied by her tag team partner, Manami Toyota.
Manami Toyota, a very attractive young lady and a tremendous athlete.
She reminds me of my sister.
I've never met your sister. You've never been so kind as to make the introduction. I need to talk to you about that.
There's a reason for that.
The opposition for Toyota and Yoshida, two of the most famous wrestlers on the distaff side in Japan. They work for the All Japan Women's Group, and they are Bull Nakano and Akira Hokuto, as we see Yoshida and Toyota being introduced to the crowd.
Now, again, Mike, I can't even begin to explain to you the culture shock that the North Koreans must be going through right now, because you're talking about the most conservative culture of people that I have ever been exposed to anywhere. And here they're getting a look at some pretty extreme-looking women. I don't care what anybody says. This is on the cutting edge of bizarre.
This is Bull Nakano leading the way to the ring for her team with the blue hair. And then behind her, of course, Akira Hokuto in the kabuki mask.
Please, it's not the blue hair. Look at the beautiful kimono they're wearing.
Hard to get by the blue hair. I mean, yeah, you're right. It's a great kimono, but it's a little tough to get by that blue hair.
Americans, it's all superficial. You gotta see through the beauty of the artwork.
Yeah, okay. We're going to talk about seeing through the beauty of Bull Nakano all night long. One thing that I think we will all agree on is you're going to see a tremendous display of wrestling action here, despite the outward appearance of the athletes and the contestants, because this is going to be exciting. We've seen Bull Nakano in the past. We know what she's capable of. Toyota, a very, very dynamic athlete.
Pound for pound among the best wrestling in the world. And interesting to note, as we see Yoshida introduced, there are thousands of applications each year to become a wrestler with the All Japan Women. They give the top 100 individuals a tryout. They narrow that down to just a half a dozen to attend their brutal training camp. And maybe out of that half dozen, 2 or 3 will survive to have one match.
Yeah. How'd you like that, knocking on your hotel room door about 6 o'clock in the morning?
Please, John.
Bull Nakano is in many ways similar to Big Van Vader, and we're not talking about just looks. She happens to hold world's titles in U.S., Japan, and Mexico during her career, much as Vader has, and we see Nakano start off with the offense with Hokuto.
Hokuto and Bull Nakano double teaming here. Yoshida in a lot of trouble. Toyota in there. We got all 4 ladies in there now. Referee's got his hands full.
Oh, double clothesline by Nakano sends both Toyota and Yoshida reeling.
Bull Nakano probably, without question, the strongest of the 4 women in the ring. I think Toyota possibly the fastest. Oh, my goodness. Did you see that clothesline?
Clotheslined her right out of her boots. Nakano right at the 200-pound mark with quite a weight advantage over Toyota.
All right, now Toyota feeling like she just got hit by a Dodge Ram. Nakano very aggressive, spends a lot of time on the hair. Nice move by Toyota. Toyota's so fast, makes her way up to the middle. Turnbuckle comes off. She didn't quite get the kicks.
Missile drop kick attempt, and now nails her this time right in the chest.
Toyota with a cover, referee in position, getting about a 2 count. Pretty tough to get an early count like that on an athlete as tough as Bull Nakano. Yoshida in there now. Yoshida picking up where Toyota left off. Bull Nakano coming off the ring, sets up, running clothesline. Tag, nope, didn't see the tag.
Big power slam, and now a chance for Hokuto off the top with a splash.
Great tag team action there. Both of these women obviously know each other very well. Perfect execution and timing here. Yoshida coming up the ropes, took a kick right to the jaw.
Even our ladies are trained in martial arts.
I guess so. Trained in wrestling too, as that was a vicious pile driver.
Short pile driver by Hokuto gets just a 2 count. Hokuto to the wrestling fans is known as the Dangerous Queen as far as nicknames go. Among the wrestlers, they call her the Mummy as she tries for what looks like she's going to set her up for the Rito Romero special.
Well, the Dangerous Queen just attacked the hamstrings, and then heading up now, she is going for a submission here.
And rocks back into the upside down surfboard move. That is the Rito Romero special. Hokuto among the wrestlers is known as the Mummy because of so many injuries she's had. She seems to be taped from head to toe before each match.
I can see why with action like this. I'd want to own stock in Johnson & Johnson. Bull Nakano now. Again, going for the submission. Toyota rather helpless on the outside. She'd love to make a tag here. The referee's definitely in control of the action. And again, a submission attempt by Bull Nakano. This time Toyota, she can't take it anymore. She steps in. Referee sends her out.
Nakano, vicious clubbing blow to the back.
Hokuto off the top rope, comes off with the elbow. Toyota again, she's probably the freshest of the 3 athletes in there right now. Masawa Hattori, though, doing a good job. He's got his eye on her. He knows she wants to get into the action. Masawa Hattori, great referee. I believe he was a member of the Japanese Olympic team.
He was former amateur wrestling star, as you mentioned.
Cover. Only a 2 count and a nice back bridge. Yeah, shit is tough. She's taking a lot of punishment here. Coming off the ropes. Cartwheel off the rope, sets up, crossbody block. Hokuto in trouble there. Nice crossbody block. She's got a rocket and reeling. Irish whip coming across the ring. Nice cartwheel into an elbow.
Shades of the Great Muta there with that handspring elbow.
Another Irish whip. Does she set up again? She does. Elbow again, this time to the midsection. Hokuto is down. She is in trouble. Yoshida in control of the action. Sets up. Up and over. Reverse cradle with a back bridge. And only a 1 count. And here is some frustration there. She's going after, I thought she was going after Masawa Hattori. I was going to say, that's going to be a big mistake.
Oh, Hokuto stops Yoshida on top. Looks like she's going to go to the top for a superplex off the top rope.
Tremendous move. Cover. 1, 2, and Yoshida rolls the shoulder. This is great action.
Terrific action among these 4 women. Interesting to note as we see Nakano come off, and Nakano nails Hokuto, sends her reeling. Tag to Toyota from the top.
Oh, Toyota. Great move off the top rope, but boy, did she pay. Bull Nakano in there now with Toyota. Toyota in trouble. Nakano sets up, pile driver. 2. Wow. That was close.
What a power bomb by Bull.
Eric, I think North Korean men are just totally speechless at this point.
2. Toyota.
Oh, what a roll-up attempt there that she worked her way right out of the power bomb, and Toyota almost with the pinfall.
I think what we're seeing here now, Mike, is the fact that Toyota's had so much time outside of the ring. She's really picked up the pace of the action here.
Oh, Bull reverses with a double suplex of her own.
Bull Nakano makes a tag. Hokuto comes off the top, nobody there. Nakano's down. Toyota now going after Hokuto. Hokuto's in a lot of trouble here. Double Irish whip coming off the ropes. Double drop kick. I was going to say, she needs a break.
Great offense here by Toyota and Yoshida.
Yoshida going through the ropes, out onto the floor, takes both opponents down.
What a dive there by Yoshida. And here goes Manami Toyota to the top. Springboard plunge off the top rope all the way to the floor.
Textbook offense here by Yoshida and Toyota. Body slam. Toyota again, very fast-paced action, hesitating a little bit here. Couldn't be a mistake. Comes off the top rope. Hattorian. Yep, Hattori was right there. Only a 2 count, though.
Toyota with one of her favorite finishing holds, the moonsault, but gets only 2. Oh, this is another of her favorite holds here as she sets her up. This is an ocean cyclone suplex. It's blocked into a reverse victory roll.
A lot of frustration here, and I'll tell you one thing that's quite obvious to me is all 4 of these ladies in tremendous physical condition. Back suplex with the bridge. 1, 2. Irish whip into the corner. Yoshida, oh man, balanced like a cat, hooks a leg and almost sticks Nakano. Bull Nakano in a lot of trouble there. Drop kick, misses. Off the ropes, drop kick again. Didn't really get much of Nakano. They did that time. Double your pleasure, double your fun. And Yoshida and Toyota missed with the double clothesline. Hokuto off the top. Takes both Toyota and Yoshida down.
Beautiful drop kick there by Hokuto, and now Nakano goes to the floor, and Bull's going to take both Toyota and Yoshida. High-risk maneuver coming up by Hokuto. Wow! Oh, unbelievable. Off the top rope with that flip into a double clothesline onto the floor.
Well, Nakano coming up the top rope, leg drop right across the top of the chest. I believe she took the chin out. 1, 2, 3. Misawa Hattori finishes this one. It is over. Your winners, Bull Nakano and Hokuto.
What an effort here. Bull Nakano and Akira Hokuto with the victory over Manami Toyota and Mariko Yoshida. And everything really went down to the finish, where it was Bull using her favorite hold, that diving guillotine leg drop off the top, gaining the pinfall win. Bull Nakano and Akira Hokuto with the win here in Korea.
Pretty surprising, the teamwork between Akira Hokuto and Bull Nakano. It looks like they've been together a long time. Their offense was very well executed. The timing, a lot of tags in and out. They really controlled the pace. It was a tremendous display of athletic ability, no doubt about it. Tremendous tag team action. The All Japan women here in Pyongyang. All right, Mike, this was going to be very interesting. Scott Norton, a guy that I almost grew up with in Minneapolis, very well known in the streets of Minneapolis. They call him the Flash. He got that nickname because of his arm wrestling prowess. He was a tremendous competitor in professional arm wrestling before he made it into professional wrestling. As you pointed out earlier, trained by a guy that you know pretty well, Brad Ringens.
Yes, he was trained by Brad Ringens for professional wrestling. Norton has been a perennial challenger for New Japan's version of the World Championship called the IWGP title. And his opponent in the match tonight, Shinya Hashimoto. At the time of this event, Hashimoto was the IWGP champion.
Scott Norton, I'm going to tell you now, we spent a lot of time with Scott in and around Pyongyang. Of course, we were here for a total of 5 days. Scott had a hard time adjusting. Now, here's a guy who's never really had to put up with a lot from anybody. And one of the things I have to tell you, when you get to North Korea, one of the first things they do is take your passport away from you. One of the things that you notice is when you're in the hotel, you're constantly surrounded by, well, we'll call them escorts, who kind of keep track of everything you're doing and everybody you're talking to and everything that's happening. And I'll tell you what, it drove Scott just a little bit nuts. And I think the North Korean people were a little happy to see Scott leave.
What was the reaction of the North Korean people just at the mere size of Norton at 360 pounds?
They were awestruck. I mean, you just don't see people that big in North Korea. And they were in awe of him. Of course, he's got a voice. I mean, he kind of sounds like if a grizzly bear could talk, it would sound just like Scott Norton. And, if his size doesn't intimidate you when he orders breakfast, that certainly would.
I don't know what part of diplomacy this plays, but having one of the only Americans seen Scott Norton, they think all Americans.
Shinya Hashimoto, hey, we talked about this before, guys. Don't let his size fool you. Here's a guy, I mean, let's face it, he's not going to win any marathons. But when you're talking about a wrestling match, here's a guy who's extremely fast. He can kick the bumper off a Cadillac. This guy is tougher than nails, and this is going to be a tremendous matchup between Scott Norton and Shinya Hashimoto.
Hashimoto has a very deceptive physique, as you mentioned. A true athlete. He has by far the stiffest, most brutal kicks in the sport today.
Well, I'll tell you, it's different when you talk about conditioning. You look at Scott Norton, and here's a guy who obviously spends a tremendous amount of time in the gym. You look at Hashimoto, you think, here's a guy who spends a lot of time in the Japanese version of a Pizza Hut. But this guy can take abuse, and there's different kinds of conditioning. Conditioning your body to take abuse is one of the key elements in any in professional wrestling. And I think Hashimoto could probably take more physical abuse than probably any three other wrestlers combined. And he's going to have to be able to take it in there with Scott Norton, because Norton can dish it out.
These two have a history together in matches for the IWGP Championship. Previous meetings saw Norton wrestle actually against doctor's orders. He had an arm injury going into the match. Hashimoto used that to his advantage to gain the win the last time that they wrestled.
And look at the power of Scott Norton. I mean, you put Scott Norton in a full Nelson. It's a great move on paper, not such a great idea in real life.
I think if there was ever an even or a picket matchup, this is it. You have Hashimoto's size, which almost neutralizes so many of Norton's power moves. On the other hand, you have Norton's size and just his overall thickness that neutralizes Hashimoto's offense of those kicks to the chest.
Did
what a
you
maneuver.
see that?
Well,
I mean, wow. That looks like something you saw on a busy street in Los Angeles. Some guy crossing on a red light. Bam! But I think, Mr. Ishikawa, this is going to be a great example. In fact, this is our first example to see an American and a Japanese. And it looks to me like the American wrestler, Scott Norton, putting on a fine display of physical superiority.
Early on, we're talking about endurance. We're talking about different aspect of a training, as you said earlier. And you can see that Mr. Hashimoto has a sumo type of trained body. And Scott Norton, he's got a lot of bumps.
Well, I'll be next time I see Scott, I'll be sure to pass that along to him. I'm sure he'd like to.
Well, I didn't mean anything negative by that.
Oh, okay. Just checking. Scott Norton. Faked with a collar and elbow hookup. You saw it. Hashimoto thought he was going to go for the collar and elbow hookup, left his midsection exposed. Norton took advantage of it. Quick thinking on the part of the American wrestler, Scott Norton. This is a game of chess. A lot of people think wrestling is nothing but just brute force and physicality, but this really is a game of chess. There's a lot of strategy involved.
Well, I think this is Mr. Hashimoto's part of rope-a-dope. Muhammad Ali being here and everything, I think he's trying to do his version of it.
We'll find out. Looks to me like he just got flattened. I mean, can you imagine a 350-plus pound Scott Norton coming at you full bore while you're pinned in a corner and then putting the boots to you on top of it?
Norton's certainly in control here in the early going.
One of the things that I've noticed about Scott Norton, I was with him in the AWA when he first started. He just took a big boot there to the face. And here we're getting a look at Shinya Hashimoto's back leg round kick to the midsection. That one caught Scott Norton right on the point of the chin. Norton goes down. You don't see that too often. Big Scott Norton taking off his feet with a back leg round kick.
Jump spin wheel kick. One of the great martial art moves.
Tremendous martial arts move, and it was a running jump spin wheel kick. So you've got the velocity of the run, you got the centrifugal force of the spin, and you got the heel of that foot, or the boot in this case, right underneath your ear, and that will take you out. And then Hashimoto going for the armbar. And again here, now look at this, perfect example. You got 3 pressure points here. You got the shoulder, you've got the elbow, and you've got the wrist.
Some background on Hashimoto. He's 29 years old, already 11 years as a pro under his belt, just right at the 300-pound mark. In addition to training with the New Japan organization, he also received some North American training in Canada and went to the same camp as Brian Pillman of WCW, as well as Chris Benoit, Wild Pegasus, who we saw earlier.
Scott Norton now on the defensive. Norton's got to get some offense mounted here. He's looking at the referee, said, hey, what's the deal with the ropes here, ref? Start the count. Norton could be in trouble. Hashimoto knows that he's got a bad arm there. Scott Flash Norton. As I was about to say, back in the AWA, you know, he and I both started in the AWA about the same time. I think myself about 1987. Scott came in shortly after that. Scott Norton was so aggressive. He really didn't know how to pace himself. And whenever he got into a long match, he became vulnerable. One of the things that I've noticed now, he's a lot more seasoned, a lot more experienced. He paces himself. He picks his shots. He makes sure that his opponent is vulnerable before he really turns up the offense. That's the biggest difference that I'm seeing here. It's been a long time since I've seen Scott Norton in action.
Well, Norton has Hashimoto off his feet. Now we'll see if he can follow up on the advantage. Slow to move in and take advantage at this point.
You know, I think back of those days when Scott Norton was breaking into the sport of professional wrestling, and he had everybody scared. Timekeepers at ringside didn't want to be there whenever Scott Norton was wrestling. You couldn't find a referee that wanted to referee the match, and finding opponents was a little difficult. This guy was a one-man demolition team. He hurt everybody.
Interesting background on Scott Norton. He actually went to high school with Road Warrior Hawk. They're the same age. Eric, can you imagine if those two came up and wanted your lunch money?
You give it up. It's real simple. Your lunch money, your shoes, your leather jacket. Hey, keys to my car, they're yours. Take them. Just leave me the heck alone. You know, I look back when I see Scott Norton, it brings back a lot of memories. I think back to the AWA, another back leg round kick, followed up with a back leg round kick to the back of the head there by Hashimoto. Jump back leg round kick. Very difficult move, even for a smaller athlete to execute. But I think back to the days of the AWA, you know, we used to have an event there every year called the Courage Cup, where we'd get a bunch of celebrity, ex-celebrity NFL football players and wrestlers and put on a touch football game for charity. That was one of the first times I'd ever seen Scott Norton. In fact, it was before he broke into the wrestling business officially. And you remember Dave Casper used to play for the Oakland Raiders? Well, he and Dave Casper and Scott Norton got into it. And Scott Norton pulled Dave Casper's jersey up over his head, batted him around the football field inside of the Hubert Humphrey Metrodome. It was quite a sight to behold. Casper gained a whole new respect for professional wrestling after that. And right now, Scott Norton is getting a whole new respect for Hashimoto. Hashimoto, got to be impressed with the strength, though.
Drives that elbow right into the shoulder of Norton, as well as using that arm bar.
Real close to the ropes here. I'm surprised that Norton isn't trying to reach for a rope. Hashimoto exerting a tremendous amount of energy, though, trying to fight off the strength of Norton, and that could be Norton's strategy. Tire the big guy out.
I think that's Mr. Hashimoto's strategy.
Now, back leg rock kick to the top of the chest, Scott Norton. Oh, he knows it. Norton has seen it before. Scott Norton says, hey, come on, big man. Load it up.
It's what we talked about earlier, that thickness of Norton actually neutralizing those kicks from Hashimoto.
And you can see Hashimoto driving his hips through the kick and still unable to take the big man off his feet. Norton set him on purpose. This is great. Norton knew exactly how Hashimoto was going to react. Hashimoto so predictable in this match. Norton hooks the leg.
So predictable. We're not watching the same match. Mr. Hashimoto is setting up Norton. Very soon here, he's going to be working his kicks. He's setting him up.
Sounds like wishful thinking to me. Norton clearly the aggressor here. Face lock.
Only using his brute strength. That's going to be his downfall.
Brute strength, physical conditioning, experience, and psychology.
Experience he got from wrestling in New Japan Pro Wrestling.
As this match goes on, one of the things that we have to keep in mind, this bout a 20-minute time limit, and I think both wrestlers pacing themselves accordingly.
Hashimoto in a lot of trouble here. Scott Norton moves in. Masao Hattori, he was in a perfect position and only saw the 2 count. Hashimoto looking fatigued. Scott Norton may be getting a little tired himself. Not quite as aggressive, has slowed down the pace a little bit, relying on his power. Elbow drop.
Vicious elbow by Norton, driven right into the throat and chest of Hashimoto, and a second one.
This is what we talked about earlier, though, Mike. And you give Mr. Ishikawa credit where credit is due. When we talked about physical conditioning, here we go. 1, 2. Rolls the shoulder. Hashimoto, his conditioning allows him to take this kind of abuse and keep coming back with offense. An average man right now, I tell you what, he'd be in a hospital. He'd be doing CAT scans on you. They'd be checking your pulse. You've had tubes running in and out of you. You'd be in serious trouble. Hashimoto's still in there competing. Back body drop. Norton now on the receiving end of some offense. Hashimoto looking stronger by the moment.
You got to remember, a Japanese fan appreciates overcoming and endurance.
Well, right now,
great odds.
Hashimoto's got a lot to overcome.
Wow, a drop kick. And we were wondering whether Hashimoto's gas tank was nearing empty, but came up with a drop kick there out of nowhere.
Going for the submission. Hashimoto's got the arm. Pretty tough to get this kind of a submission on Scott Norton. He's got too much bicep, tricep strength. He's also got a right hand that's free that I think he's going to be doing something with shortly.
Of course, has all that arm wrestling training that you mentioned earlier, Eric.
Yeah, but that right elbow is also vulnerable because of that arm wrestling career. You know, that's one of the things that if you talk to any professional arm wrestling, Dave Brzezinski being one of the best in the world, he'll tell you that's where you know, you really take its tolls on the elbow.
Norton just with brute strength there almost, grabbing Hashimoto at the head and just pushing him down to the mat.
No. He attacked him in the eyes, pulled his hair, as Americans have a tendency to do when they're in trouble.
Scott Norton now getting fairly aggressive, and this is a Scott Norton that I went to high school and got to know pretty well. This is looking a little reminiscent of his Minneapolis. Scott Norton taking Hashimoto now across that top rope.
As you can see, he's not breaking Mr. Hattori's order.
He broke in time. Hashimoto walked into a kick, and I'll tell you what, I don't think he expected a back leg front kick out of Scott Norton. Norton now winds up. And that had to hurt. Hashimoto, how he can take a shot to the head like that is amazing to me, Mike.
Great resiliency on the part of Hashimoto as Norton with the backbreaker. And now this uncharacteristic for Scott Norton as he climbs the ropes. We'll see what he has in mind.
Hooks the leg. 2.5. Masao Hattori right there. Hattori, one of the greater referees in Japan. Living in New York, interestingly enough.
When we previewed this match, we talked about what an even matchup it was as Norton goes right to the midsection on Hashimoto with that left hand. We talked about what an even matchup that this was, and it really has been to this point. The offense split between both men.
Now Scott Norton. And Hattori really looking close. Looks like the inside of that forearm across the carotid artery. Hard to tell from this angle. Hattori looking very close. Taking Hashimoto down.
Hattori signals that there's not a choke there as Norton continues to try and wear Hashimoto down.
I'll tell you what, a ground game like this, Mike, really surprises me out of Norton. Norton is usually just a lot more physical. He likes to beat, thump, and bump you around. And you know, this is not the Scott Norton that I'm used to seeing at all.
Hashimoto has really not enabled Norton to this point to try some of those power moves. We'll see as the match progresses. And Eric, it looks like we have just about 6 minutes or so left in the time limit here. We'll see when the match progresses if Norton is able to go to those power moves.
You know, you look at a guy like Hashimoto, you wonder how he would do against some of the WCW athletes. You know, I mean, you look at Big Bubba, certainly Vader, a name that I'd like to see in there with Hashimoto. There's a lot of great athletes in WCW. It'd be interesting to see how some of the Japanese would fare.
Well, I like to see Mr. Hashimoto and rest of the New Japan Pro Wrestling stars come to...
Scott Norton in position again for a pin.
That can be arranged. We can talk about that a little bit.
I'm sure a lot of wrestling fans would love to see that as well. Irish whip across the ropes. And that's the Scott Norton we're used to seeing. Now Norton playing his game, his strategy, hooks a leg, and it was almost his match.
Too deliberate of a cover there by Norton after the clothesline, enabling Hashimoto to kick out.
Interestingly enough, Norton's going to the chest and to the body a lot. Nice block there by Hashimoto. Hashimoto turns up.
Spinning leg sweep out of a guy who weighs 300 pounds plus.
That you don't see very often. Kazuo, how difficult of a move is that? I mean, that was awful fast.
That is difficult, man, for somebody weighing 125 pounds to do. Never let somebody weigh 300 pounds.
Interesting that Hashimoto has changed his game plan to adjust to Norton. He had tried the kicks to the chest before. This time he takes the legs out and now sets up for the opportunity to use those stiff kicks to the chest.
As you can see, those are devastating round kicks with hip going right through Norton.
One of the keys when you talk about the hip going through is you got to drive your hips through the kick, and those kicks were going right to the solar plexus. They weren't going to the top of the chest. Norton in trouble here. About 1.5, 2 count there. The kicks weren't going to the top of the chest like they were earlier on in the match because that's where Norton is so built up. He's got heavy pecs. Hashimoto, real smart. He was going to the solar plexus, a more vulnerable part of the body, trying to take the wind out of Scott Norton. It was a good strategy. Unfortunately, it didn't work. Unfortunately for Hashimoto. That might have, however. Norton, he's in trouble.
DDT by Hashimoto gets the cover and only 2.
Amazing resilience by American wrestler Scott Norton.
Mr. Ishikawa giving credit where credit is due. I thought it would never happen.
Well, you got to understand, he'd been training in New Japan. I think I mentioned
That's right, we covered that.
Well, Hashimoto trying to wear down Norton at this point.
Norton looking like he's in a lot of trouble here. You can see the fatigue, the pain on his face, trying to make his way either to the ring ropes or back up to his base. This is not where Scott Norton wants to be. You get a guy like Hashimoto rested on top of your shoulders with that, what is almost a chokehold on you. It's going to tire you out in a hurry. Sawa Hattori looking very closely, making sure that it's not a choke.
Now here's Norton's chance as he tries to get to his feet. See if he's able to break the hold, and is.
Press from all over the world covering this event. I know CNN was here. ABC was here, UPI. You know, and that's one of the more interesting things, too, about this event is one of the very first times that North Korea has opened the gates and opened the doors, so to speak, to foreign press, not only from the United States and from Japan, but from all over the world. And you've got to remember, you know, after the Korean War, there has been no foreigners allowed in North Korea. Of course, they only think of Korea. In the North Koreans' mind, there's only one Korea. There is no South Korea.
But Deborah Wong of ABC correspondent in Beijing was telling us that they've been trying to get in here for years.
Yeah. This is truly a very, very historic and significant event. And to think that professional wrestling, the sport that we all love, is the thing that brings these cultures together is a little bit mind-boggling.
But you got to remember how China came into the country with ping pong. This is wrestling.
Absolutely. Scott Norton now with the cover. We've got to be getting close to the 20-minute time limit. Both of these athletes know it.
Attempts by both men to suplex each other were blocked and countered. Finally, Norton able to follow up on that suplex with a vicious chop to the chest.
I believe we're a little over 17 minutes into a 20-minute match, so something better happened pretty quickly here for either of these two athletes. And another Scott Norton right hand to the head. And I'll tell you what, Hashimoto, as tough as he is, if he's going to stand there and go toe-to-toe with Scott Norton, he better have something up his sleeve.
That is American, as your American calls it, a karate chop or a knife hand strike to the collarbone. I think he's doing the job.
Yeah, he's waking up Scott Norton. Scott Norton's been there before.
Tremendous size stomp kick.
Right to the solar plexus. Hashimoto moves in, 2 count. Muhammad Ali certainly enjoying the action. You know, Muhammad Ali, you talk to him, and he'll tell you, powerbomb by Scott Norton. Muhammad Ali will tell you that as a kid growing up in Louisville, his dad used to take him to the wrestling matches all the time. He used to watch Gorgeous George. He loves the sport of professional wrestling. And now you see Scott Norton, 350-plus pounds, making his way to the top turnbuckle. Oh, man. Devastating.
What a resilience by Mr. Hashimoto.
What a splash by Norton off the top, able just to get the 2 count.
Time.
Well, there's the bell ending the 20-minute time limit, and this even matchup between Shinya Hashimoto and Scott Norton appropriately goes to a time limit draw.
And here you see 2 tremendous athletes, 2 sportsmen who put on one heck of an exhibition in front of a very appreciative Korean audience. Let's take a look at this very special North Korean celebration. Here we're going to get another look at Yasuda. Now, this is the second night of the 2-night competition. So we are getting a look at Yasuda again, the former sumo wrestler.
This match was originally scheduled to be the reunion of the Road Warriors tag team. However, just prior to the event, Recurrence of the back injury suffered by Animal a couple of years back prevented that from happening. And as a result, we will see a singles match between the former sumo star Yasuda and a man who's recently returned to World Championship Wrestling in Road Warrior Hawk.
And you know what's interesting, and again, I'm very proud of this, but when you travel around the world, particularly in Japan and even North Korea, everybody knows WCW. I mean, without a doubt, WCW is where the big boys play and where the top athletes in our sport want to be. And certainly Road Warrior Hawk, one of those athletes who has made his way into WCW and is beginning to make his presence felt in a big way. We've seen him tagged up with Sting. We've seen him show up surprisingly at a pay-per-view and take on Ming. This guy is, he's 110% aggression.
A lot of viewers probably curious about where Road Warrior Hawk was wrestling prior to his return to World Championship Wrestling, and it was with the New Japan organization. He had formed for the last couple of years a tag team known as the Hellraisers with Kensuke Sasaki, who we will see in our next matchup, that tag team bout against the Steiner brothers.
Can you imagine getting a seat in first class on an airplane, international flight, next to Hawk with that shoulder thing on? I mean, can you imagine what it would be like to run into turbulence sitting next to him? Bam! What's that? All kidding aside, intimidation has always been a big part of Hawk's game, and he can intimidate you.
In previewing this matchup, I think you have to give quite a huge experience edge to Road Warrior Hawk. We talked earlier about Yasuda. Just in his first year as a professional wrestler, despite those 15 years as a sumo.
Well, again, we're getting another chance, Mr. Ishikawa, to take a look at the difference between an American wrestler and a Japanese wrestler. I think this is a perfect example.
Well, Mr. Yoshida is obviously only been in wrestling for just a couple of years, and he doesn't have the experience of World Warrior Hawk, obviously. And Hawk, obviously, been in Japan. He's been embraced by a New Japan pro wrestling organization. He has been assimilated.
Oh, I get it. Yasuda coming up the ropes, runs into a brick wall in Road Warrior Hawk.
Very even matchup as far as size, as you saw the two competitors collide in mid-ring.
Traditional sumo move.
What is the purpose of that? I mean, what's the idea behind it?
Warding off some evil spirits out of the ring.
Well, that's a pretty evil spirit in Road Warrior Hawk. I'll tell you what, you get him half teed off at you, he could be a real evil spirit.
He does remind one of those pengus, one of those evil spirits in Japan.
Hawk, tremendous move, takes a big man off of his feet. Road Warrior Hawk now turning up the aggressiveness as he is going after Yasuda. Yasuda in a little bit of trouble on the receiving end of a body slam, and Road Warrior Hawk taking advantage of the moment. He's got Yasuda down, Yasuda vulnerable. Road Warrior Hawk makes his way to the top rope. He comes off, nobody home. Yasuda heads up move, moves out of the way, and now it's Hawk on the receiving end of a Yasuda body slam. Yasuda, the aggressor in the contest. Yasuda really picking it up now, going for a butterfly suplex. If he gets it, Hawk's in trouble. He got it, Hawk's up on his feet, running clothesline. This one is a great one.
Well, that double underhook by Yasuda did not phase Hawk, who caught him with a clothesline and now sets him across for the whip into the ropes, and a power slam to follow.
Power body slam by Road Warrior Hawk, and a much bigger man than Yasuda, and now Hawk driving the forearm or the fist, I couldn't quite see it, right between the eyes of Yasuda. And again, Road Warrior Hawk going up to that top turnbuckle. It didn't work the first time. He's hoping his odds are better on round two. Clothesline coming up the top rope. Yasuda, 1, 2, 3. This one's over quick.
Well, very short work of Tadeo Yasuda made by Road Warrior Hawk as he nailed him with that flying clothesline off the top rope.
Road Warrior Hawk, a man, as I said, who we've seen a lot of recently in WCW, and I trust we're going to see more of in the future. As I said, WCW, where the big boys play, from the WCW World Heavyweight Champion Hulk Hogan all the way down to the rookies coming out of the power plant. WCW, the place to be. And certainly, we're all proud to be a part of the action taking place here in Pyongyang, North Korea, as WCW and New Japan Pro Wrestling make history. Wrestling diplomacy, as my broadcast partner, Mr. Ishikawa, referred to. WCW New Japan in Pyongyang. Take a look, Mike.
Well, the two squared off, and surprisingly, Yasuda comes out on top, sending Road Warrior off his feet, but Hawk right back up and nailed him with a clothesline there, and that really shook Yasuda. Followed up with the closing move with that flying clothesline off the top rope. The pinfall after that. Road Warrior Hawk victorious over Tadeo Yasuda.
More action coming your way from Pyongyang, North Korea. Tag team action coming up next as we continue to bring you the sights, the sounds, and the action from this historic event in Pyongyang, North Korea, as New Japan Pro Wrestling and WCW prepare to collide in the main event. The Nature Boy Ric Flair representing WCW and New Japan's Antonio Inoki. But before we get to that, the Steiner Brothers, a team that a lot of you all over the country here in the United States are very familiar with.
Of course, the Steiner brothers, Rick and Scott, have been wrestling regularly for the past couple of years with New Japan and have been the IWGP Tag Team Champions of the New Japan Wrestling Organization.
Two very tough competitors, make no mistake about it, but two competitors who really had a difficult time in WCW. I know that they'd love to come back, and at some point in time, they may be able to work their way back into WCW, but there's a lot of tough tag team competition here in World Championship Wrestling, a lot of tough athletes, and as I've said before, it is indeed where the big boys play. But here you've got some, well, you got a couple of guys, Mr. Ishikawa, that are very popular in Japan, in more ways than one, on my point.
Well, Mr. Hase, who just following the footsteps from Mr. Inoki, just had won an election just 3 days ago. And that's an election in Parliament in Japan, kind of like senators in your country. And Kensuke Sasaki, young, one of the great stars in New Japan Pro Wrestling.
His tag team of Hiroshi Hase, who we see now, and his partner Kensuke Sasaki, sort of a reuniting for this match among the Japanese wrestling fans and the followers of New Japan Pro Wrestling. Almost a dream match. These two teams have had a classic rivalry in the past. They had a very memorable match back in 1991 at the Tokyo Dome that actually appeared on a WCW pay-per-view. That was the first Japan Super Show.
Exactly. And you know, following the events here in Korea, we had the opportunity to go to Fukuoka, Japan, for a tremendous card there, of which WCW was also a part of. And following that event, we had the opportunity. Kensuke Sasaki's parents owned one of the finest restaurants in Tokyo. And I'll tell you what, I've been exposed to a lot of great food in my time, and I love the food in Japan, but I have never, ever been to quite a display of culinary ecstasy as I was exposed to at Kensuke Sasaki's parents' home. It was really quite a gesture on their part.
I think all the, even American wrestlers are known to, she's finally known as Mama-san.
Mama-san. Well, Mama-san can cook her butt off, let me tell you. Of course, half the stuff was raw, so I guess it doesn't count.
I guess you'd have to give a slight edge to the Steiner brothers in this matchup, basically because the team of Hase and Sasaki have not been regular teammates for the past couple of years. We talked earlier about Road Warrior Hawk and his Hellraisers tag team. Kensuke Sasaki, who we see out on the ring apron, was Hawk's tag team partner in that Hellraisers duo.
Nice duck under. Takedown by Scott Steiner. And you know, it's interesting when you look at the Steiners, you're never quite sure what kind of a match you're going to get, because technically they're obviously very sound, but they can get physical, and they can change up the strategy in a heartbeat, as we're seeing right here. Nice hip toss takedown. Scott Steiner. Scott, the more emotional of the two Steiners, I think it's safe to say. I mean, he can go off like a firecracker at any given moment. Rick Steiner, a little bit more pragmatic, takes his time in the match, a little bit more analytical. Hase on the receiving end of a Scott Steiner shoulder tackle. Hase's in trouble here. Sasaki looking on. He's anxious to get in there. Look at the power. Amazing power of Scott Steiner.
Oh, what a lift, and he just throws Hase over the top, and he crashes down into one of the attendants at ringside, I believe another one of the New Japan wrestlers. What a belly-to-belly suplex by Rick Steiner on Kensuke Sasaki in the ring. And now both Hase and Sasaki are out on the floor.
Now, what do you think is going through the minds of the North Koreans here?
A couple of crazy Americans and wrestling.
The couple of very gifted, very talented, very powerful crazy Americans inside of the wrestling ring, I think would be a little bit more accurate. Not to put words in your mouth, but that's exactly what you were trying to say, isn't it?
Yes.
Thank you.
Hiroshi Hase, as he locks up with Scott Steiner, is 33 years old. He's been wrestling as a pro for just over 9 years, a former Olympic wrestler back in the 1984 Olympics.
'84 Olympics, I believe that was the year that Jeff Blatnick won the super heavyweight division. Jeff Blatnick then in 1984 was coached.
Look at that heel kick.
By Brad Ringens.
Look at that heel kick by Hase. Right to the temple.
Irish whip coming off the ropes and a nice kick by Hase.
Oh, what a drop kick. Caught him right in the face.
Scott Steiner, so fast. And most of that power is generated from the hips. You know, you look at the upper body and it's pretty obvious that these guys are real strong. A lot of power in the arms. But when you see a suplex like that, a lot of that power is coming from your hips. You really got to pop your opponent, and it takes great timing. Rick Steiner. Now this is motivation.
Yeah, like he needs any.
This didn't go over too big in Michigan. From what I heard, the wrestling coach got real upset.
Here's an opportunity now to see Rick Steiner and Kensuke Sasaki. Sasaki, the youngest man in the ring. He's 28 years old, been wrestling for about 10 years. And at 242 pounds, he's the lone wrestler in this tag team match that really does not have an amateur background. He probably is, however, the most powerful of the New Japan wrestlers and really has the strongest upper body.
You know, interesting, we talked about Hase a little earlier ago, and again, he did win an election to the Japanese version of the U.S. Senate in Japan recently also. And I'm not sure if he was just recently married or is about to be married. His wife, a very beautiful woman. And following this event in North Korea, of course, we went to Fukuoka, where Ric Flair wrestled Hase. Ric Flair defeated Hase. And I'll tell you, it was fairly sad. Hase's wife was very, very disappointed at the loss that Hase suffered at the hands of the nature boy, Ric Flair, at the Fukuoka Dome.
You talk about marriage, and an interesting story about Kensuke Sasaki as we see him climb the top rope and comes off and, is caught by Rick Steiner, who bellies him right over the top. Kensuke Sasaki at this event in North Korea was introduced to Akira Hokuto, who we saw earlier on the card. Power slam by Sasaki.
Yeah, I heard about that the next morning, by the way.
And believe it or not, the two will be married later this year.
No, you're kidding me. And who'd have thunk it? I was there to see it. How about that? Boy, you're a veritable wealth of information, Mike, today. I mean, you're like the WCW's version of the host of the Love Connection. This is great. Hase now going after Rick Steiner. Rick Steiner coming off the ropes. Short clothesline sends Hase down to the mat. Rick Steiner in with a cover. Rick Steiner up again. Hase, he's in a world of trouble here.
And drives him chest first right into the corner. We'll see if Rick Steiner's now able to follow up. Picks up Hiroshi Hase at the hair, and now decides instead to make the tag to his brother Scott.
I wonder if that move delayed any of Hase's marriage plans. I wonder if they put anything on hold for, a month or two after that. Tremendous move. Scott Steiner hooks a leg. Kensuke Sasaki mixed in. Breaks it up. Now, that'll get under that'll get under his skin just a little bit. So, Ishikawa, what do you think? We've got another perfect example of a Japanese and American matchup here. You've been talking about it a lot throughout the broadcast. How would you analyze this one?
Well, I think you'll see that the athleticism of Hase, just like you just saw there with a drop kick, he'll overcome the strength of the Steiners.
Very subtle move there by Scott Steiner to hook the leg of Hiroshi Hase and prevent him from making the tag to Kensuke Sasaki. He rolls to the corner and makes the tag into Rick Steiner, who will now try to capitalize.
Wow! Oh, man.
Suplexed him right out of his boots.
He just about suplexed him right out of the ring. I tell you what, there's about 24 North Koreans sitting in the third row that thought that they were going to get a whole lap full of Hase. Kensuke Sasaki now moves in with a big boot to the kidneys. You can see the pain on the face of Rick Steiner. He's having a hard time getting up. Makes a tag. Scott Steiner comes in. Retribution on his mind, to be sure. Brings Hase right to the center of the ring. Doesn't want Hase to be able to make it to the ropes. And you talk about an STF. He's going for the submission. He's got him. He's got the leg hook, the crossface. Hase made the only move he could. He turned his chin into the elbow. That's the only way you're going to get out of an STF.
I think you'll see Mr. Hase overcoming this move, submission, so-called submission move. I think he's going to be fine. He's just going to make it to the rope, and he's going to get out, and I like to see Sasaki.
It is a struggle for Hase to make it to the ropes, and Rick Steiner from outside with a boot to the head.
Scott now taking advantage of the count from Misawa Hattori. Drops a couple of boots on the head of Hiroshi Hase. Hase very slow to get up. Off the ropes now. Scott Steiner sets up. Belly-to-belly suplex. And I don't know how much more this Hase can take.
Hase has just been taking tremendous punishment from both Steiners. And again, important to note that Scott Steiner cuts him off, does not allow the tag, and Rick Steiner will try and follow up.
And I don't care what Mr. Ishikawa has to say. What you're looking at here is supreme tag team execution and strategy on the part of the Steiners. If you notice, Mr. Ishikawa, Hase has been stuck in the Steiners' corner for the majority of this match. And that's what this is all about. This is tag team wrestling.
Well, he's on the ropes, but why isn't the referee stopping?
He's on the ropes. He's on the end of Rick Steiner's and Scott Steiner's boots. That's what he's on. Forget about the ropes. Right on the solar plexus.
Grinding those heels in.
I think Mr. Ishikawa is getting a whole newfound respect for American professional wrestlers.
Now we're going to see if Hase can make it to the corner. He's trying to, a very difficult thing to try and push Scott Steiner back and see if he can make the tag.
You can hear the North Korean crowd getting into it.
It's a very physical match, and you're getting an excellent opportunity to see some of the finest technical wrestling in our sport. Hooks the leg. You know, and if we're going to be honest about this, Mike, I think one of the things that you've got to say about the Steiner brothers, and probably one of the reasons they're not at the top of the game today in the United States, is their emotions. They have a hard time controlling their emotions in and outside of the ring. And in any professional sport, you have to be able to control your emotions. You have to be able to use your head. And their emotions get the better of them more often than not. And they can end up on a receiving end of a heck of an offense, and that's what you're seeing right here.
Well, it was a choke slam by Hiroshi Hase that enabled Sasaki to get in the ring, and it appeared like he was going to take over on offense, but he was stopped by Scott Steiner.
And you look at professional, and not to cut you off, but you look at professional sports, and in any sport, you see sports are littered with athletes that never quite reach the potential because they couldn't control their emotions.
Or in the case of the Steiners, maybe funneling those emotions in the proper way.
Hase now, tremendous move.
And that was a great move off the top rope. Athleticism of Hase, maybe a few pounds lighter than Steiner's, but you can see that his athletic ability is just amazing. And this is his move.
Hase makes famous this giant swing, and count the repetitions as Rick Steiner goes around 4 times, 5 times. I've seen him get into the 30s and 40s with this move.
44 is his record.
Rick Steiner almost appears to be covering his eyes to try and prevent the dizziness as Hiroshi Hase now throws Rick Steiner away.
One of the things that amazes me is how does Hase keep from falling down after spinning his opponent around like that?
I think you're right. I think he is a little dizzy right there.
Hase looks a little groggy at this point, but nothing compared to Rick Steiner.
The answer to that is, really, if you talk to anybody that's ever done it, it's a lot like a figure skater. What you've got to do is be able to focus on one point and keep going back to that point as you make your rotations. That's how you keep from getting dizzy. But that's a lot harder to do when you're trying to swing 250 pounds around.
Hase might be out on his...
What a suplex by Rick Steiner. He spiked him right on his head, and now we'll see if Scott Steiner can follow up.
Scott, very physical, very aggressive. Ouch. Katsuki Sasaki breaking it up, and now Rick Steiner comes in. We've got all 4 men in the ring, and Masao Hattori's going, oh my God, what do I do now?
Well, we see Rick Steiner and Sasaki fighting out on the floor. In the ring, Scott Steiner with Hiroshi Hase.
Steiner's got it set up in the ring. We've got action outside of the ring and action inside of the ring, and this one is over.
Now, we didn't see it there exactly, but Scott Steiner does end up with the pinfall over Hiroshi Hase, while Rick Steiner and Kensuke Sasaki were fighting out on the floor. Steiner brothers victorious over Hase and Sasaki.
An American tag team over the Japanese tag team, much to the chagrin of Kazuo Ishikawa and a lot of the Japanese fans here, but nevertheless, exciting action.
These two teams had been exchanging victories in this rivalry in the past. This one goes to the Steiners, and Hase looks like he's quite shaken up after the match.
He has taken quite a beating on this evening's match.
It was that one suplex by Rick Steiner that really set up the final pinfall for Scott Steiner on Hiroshi Hase, where he planted him right on his head.
Yeah, I think when you wrestle the Steiner brothers, it's never any one move. It's a combination, or a culmination, I should say, of a series of jarring moves and offense. You've got the suplexes, you've got boots to the back of the head. They're a very physical team. And like I say, when they're on their game and their heads are on straight, they're real tough to beat.
And this being the second evening of the matchups, Eric, there was 190,000 people in the second night, 40,000 more people.
Great action from the Steiner brothers, another tag team that is trying to make their way into WCW, but then again, that's the goal of just about every professional athlete in our sport, Mike.
And Eric, just when you think you've seen it all, from the amazing aerial maneuvers of the junior heavyweights to the power of the super heavyweights, and of course that wild All-Japan women's tag team, it's time for the main event. Mr. Ishikawa, let's get your opinion on this first ever meeting between Ric Flair and Antonio Inoki.
Why ask? There's no contest. We have Rikidozan, who is from Pyongyang, North Korea, who was the instructor of Antonio Inoki. Ric Flair hasn't got a chance.
Well, I beg to differ, Mr. Ishikawa, with all due respect. And what Mr. Ishikawa is referring to is that Rikidozan, who is highly respected here in North Korea, was indeed the instructor. And certainly that is going to give Antonio Inoki an emotional edge. Inspiration, if you will, facing a guy like Ric Flair. But Ric Flair is one of the ultimate athletes in the sport today. And for you to say there's going to be no contest, I think is a little bit premature. Of course, a lot of preparation going into the match with the Nature Boy Ric Flair. Mr. Inoki, being the dignitary that he is, the celebrity that he is in Korea, spent a lot of time in preparation, meeting with the Japanese government officials, but when it came time to get ready for game time, Antonio Inoki was all business. The Nature Boy Ric Flair, he knew he was up against one of the greatest legends in the sport today, and both athletes, without question, took this match, this opportunity, and this challenge very, very seriously. Would Antonio Inoki become a national hero in Korea, or would he face defeat at the hands of the Nature Boy Ric Flair? 안토니오 이노키는 자기 마지막 경기를 끝마치는 오늘의 이 경기를 세계 진보적인 분들이 서로 물어보는 분명히 또 북한의 공격에서 진행하는 And this indeed was the match that the entire world was waiting for. WCW's own Ric Flair taking on the legend himself, Antonio Inoki. Antonio Inoki, the man who was really instrumental politically and as a promoter in putting this tremendous event on. Had worked on this event for over a year and a half with the government of Korea, the government of Japan, and of course all of us over here at WCW to make this thing happen. And it was a tremendous opportunity to be a part of history. And I can't tell you the feelings that I had being executive with WCW, seeing the Nature Boy Ric Flair, despite how I may feel about him personally and professionally, making his way into the ring. It was an awesome spectacle.
Historic first ever matchup of these two wrestling legends, and it's a rarity that Ric Flair gives away an experience advantage going into any match, but that actually is the case here against Inoki.
Well, we've seen so much of Ric Flair as of late, and certainly Ric Flair living on the edge. as I said a few moments ago, it's very hard to respect the way he conducts himself inside of the ring. He's taken some real cheap shots recently. Certainly the situation with him and Vader and now Arn Anderson is one of nothing but controversy. But in this match, it was two great athletes, a tremendous amount of experience inside of the ring. And everybody in North Korea knew it. You could feel the excitement. The 190,000+ people came alive as Antonio Inoki made his way to the ring. And you have to remember, this was the protege of a legend in North Korea by the name of Ricky Dozan. And in the days before this tremendous event, Antonio Inoki and the Korean press went to the gravesite in the birthplace of Ricky Dozan, where Antonio Inoki paid tribute to this great North Korean icon. So the emotions at this point in this contest, while earlier it was a very subdued crowd, right now at this moment, this is one very emotional, very excited, and highly anticipatory crowd in North Korea. You are seeing history before your eyes, and it was great to be a part of it. Kazuo, what was going through your mind, being of Japanese heritage? Certainly the relationship between Japan and Korea has been one that has been strained for a number of years. What was going through your mind?
Well, you know, great Antonio Inoki utilizing his position and his stardom as a professional wrestler, using professional wrestling to bring barbarian, only known as barbarian type American to North Korea. It's unheard of, and he's using professional wrestling as bridge of peace, and it's a great thing that Mr. Inoki is doing.
And that's one of the things I think we need to point out throughout Pyongyang, North Korea, which is a very big city, a very modern city in North Korea. This was regarded as a festival for peace. This was not a professional wrestling match. A lot of the spectacle that you saw a little bit of earlier on in this pay-per-view, we saw a lot of that over a 3 or 4 day period of time. And this really was a festival for peace. And I think hats off to Antonio Inoki, a man who has great vision and saw that there is a way to bring countries, regardless of their political differences, together through entertainment, through sport, and through understanding. And this certainly was the epitome of that vision.
So many interesting sidebars to this matchup. This actually was Ric Flair's first major bout since his retirement in October of 1994, and we'll see if that ring rust may play a part in this matchup.
Well, it's interesting that you bring that out, and I'm not going to talk too much about what happened in this match because we want people to enjoy it, but I can tell you only a few days later following this match, Ric Flair at the top of his game dominated Hiroshi Hase, who is certainly one of the top wrestlers in New Japan Pro Wrestling, and I think Ric Flair really came into his own on this trip. Unfortunately, as we've seen, Ric Flair got back to the United States. The competition getting to him the way that it is, Ric Flair is, well, he is Ric Flair. He hasn't changed a bit.
Amazing to me that this is the first ever matchup between these two wrestling legends, and I'm sure that both men going for the bragging rights at this point.
I think you're going to see the better technique and better athleticism and of Mr. Inoki here.
I don't know. I have a tendency to disagree with you, and I have a tremendous amount of respect with Mr. Inoki. I've had the opportunity to conduct some interesting business with him, and I've got to say I respect him as a man. I respect him as an athlete, but you can't take anything away from Ric Flair. Ric Flair is a consummate professional, and right now you're seeing Antonio Inoki with a tremendous armbar and really in a defensive posture, putting that armbar. Usually that's an offensive maneuver. It's a maneuver that an athlete would use to control his opponent. In this case, Antonio Inoki using that armbar in a defensive posture.
We talk about the two wrestling legends in Flair and Inoki. We had mentioned earlier that in attendance is the boxing legend Muhammad Ali. And of course, Inoki very famous in the United States for his 1976 matchup with Muhammad Ali, where the two fought to a 15-round draw.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, in this, during the course of this trip, I had the opportunity to attend several top-level government meetings with the Vice President of Korea, the President of the Asian Pacific Peace Committee. We had several dinners, and I had the opportunity to be with Muhammad Ali and his photographer, Howard Bignan, who has been with him for about 25 years, and listened to some tremendous stories about Muhammad Ali. And I can tell you one thing, Muhammad Ali loves this great sport, and Muhammad Ali loves WCW.
We hear the crowd for one of the few times at Collision in Korea really responding to Inoki. He has an advantage with that crowd support for sure.
Well, Inoki is one of the great athletic hero, or one of the great hero, period, in North Korea.
And again, very unique being that Antonio Inoki is certainly from Japan. And as I pointed out, you don't have to be a student of world politics to know that North Korea and Japan are not exactly what you call kissing cousins. Nice move here by the Nature Boy Ric Flair, taking Antonio Inoki into the ring ropes. Misawa Hattori asking for a break here, and uncharacteristic at this point of the Nature Boy Ric Flair breaking clean. I think Ric Flair has a tremendous amount of respect for Antonio Inoki.
Yeah, you can see that here in almost a feeling out process on the part of both men early on in this matchup.
The Nature Boy Ric Flair on the receiving end of an Antonio Inoki headlock. Inoki now coming off the rope, sets up, firmly plants his feet, and takes the Nature Boy Ric Flair off his feet. Now, Antonio Inoki going after the back, stomping onto the kidney area. Ric Flair has a hold of the ropes. He is looking for a way out of this because he is in trouble. He makes his way outside of the ring as the referee, Misawa Hattori, had to call Antonio Inoki off. This is where, Mike, I can tell you the emotions were running very, very high.
And Flair very wisely rolls out of the ring to stop what is really the first offensive flurry of this matchup, those strong kicks by Inoki.
Now, you can say what you want about Antonio Inoki, and a lot of the critics of our sport say, hey, wait a minute, Antonio Inoki's, what is he, 53 years old? He's too old to be in there. This man is in better shape than most 33-year-olds I know. He is in tremendous physical condition. In fact, I made the mistake of going out jogging with him one day, had to bow out after about 25 minutes, could not keep up the pace. This guy is in great, great physical condition.
Well, thank you, Eric. It's about time you talk about one of our statesmen in proper context.
Well, I call it as I see it, unlike some people I know. Mr. Ishikawa.
Well, now we see Flair at his best, and if Ric Flair is true to his form, we'll see him probably try and work on the leg of Antonio Inoki, of course, to try and set up a possibility of putting that figure 4 leg lock on.
Now, you're seeing a lot of frustration right now out of Antonio Inoki. One of the things that Antonio Inoki is not used to is the strategy of an American wrestler, particularly an American wrestler with the characteristics of Ric Flair. Normally in Japan, when a wrestler makes it to the ropes, there's a clean break. Ric Flair, being Ric Flair, is going to take advantage of the situation, as you see right here. And he is really trying now to impart physical damage on Antonio Inoki. The other thing you will not see very often in Japan is a referee manhandling, a wrestler manhandling a referee. That's exactly what you saw out of Ric Flair. Now we're seeing Ric Flair the way we see him here in the United States. Running Antonio Inoki's head right into that metal post. And I'll tell you what, this took a lot out of Antonio Inoki.
Well, actually, this is what North Korean public were expected to see. There was days and days of Ric Flair on their only television in North Korea.
Inoki looks dazed at this point as we see Hiroshi Hase trying to get him fired up and get him back in the ring against Flair.
The Nature Boy Ric Flair. Vertical suplex. The Nature Boy with the cover hooks the leg, but Antonio Inoki in excellent physical condition, able to make the kick. He kicks out. Ric Flair picks up the leg again. Referee's in position, only got a 2 count. The Nature Boy Ric Flair, he had to feel that he had Antonio Inoki right where he wanted him, continued to go after the pinfall. But Antonio Inoki, a very smart wrestler. This guy has spent so many years in the ring. He knows where he is at every given moment. But the Nature Boy Ric Flair, devastating offense at this point.
There's the first time that he's really started to work on the leg and knee of Inoki, and he's working on Inoki's left leg at this point. Well, speaking of that STF-type maneuver, we had talked about it being Masa Chono's pet hold. Chono didn't use it in the matchup, and now we've seen a variation of the STF here by Flair.
And Mike, being the student of professional wrestling as you are, I don't know how many times you've seen the Nature Boy Ric Flair put an STF on an opponent, but I can't remember one.
No, it's a rarity. We're seeing Flair pull some new tricks out of his bag tonight.
And now the Nature Boy Ric Flair going over the ropes, going going down on the knee and trying to attack the inside cartilage and ligaments of that left knee of Antonio Inoki. That is a devastating move, and I can guarantee you the North Korean public, all of those in attendance, over 190,000 people, were probably wondering, what kind of offense is this? This man is a sheer barbarian. And now the Nature Boy Ric Flair, after he gets done with the right leg, goes after the, the left leg goes after the right.
Well, he calls himself the dirtiest player in the game, and you saw that clip by Flair that just took Inoki's legs right out from under him and follows up with a knee drop right to the head.
And when you watch the Nature Boy Ric Flair and you put this entire thing in context, it really helps you understand the significance of the WCW World Heavyweight Champion Hulk Hogan, a man who has defeated Ric Flair. When you look at the WCW World Heavyweight Champion, a man who has defeated Big Van Vader. But here you're looking at WCW against one of New Japan's legends, Antonio Inoki, and the Nature Boy Ric Flair. If there is any question at all about ring rust, because as you pointed out, he was coming out of a retirement. He made believers out of a lot of people, and I guarantee you, Antonio Inoki is a believer at this point in the match because he is in a tremendous amount of pain.
Well, we'd seen Flair set up Inoki for the figure 4 leg lock, and he locks it on. Inoki looks in trouble in the middle of the ring. Flair's got him exactly where he wants him at this point.
Kazuo, again, you hear North Koreans chanting Inoki, Inoki, Inoki. I mean, talk about a cultural dichotomy. This is something that very unique.
Well, it just goes to show you that the state that Mr. Inoki has been for trying to help North Korean come back to the fold of the family of nations. And I think you got to go beyond wrestling.
Well, and I think a lot of it goes to the fact that Inoki was so closely related to Ricky Dozan. And as we talked about before, there were stamps produced in North Korea with Inoki's picture on them, collectibles. There were silver coins that were pressed with Inoki on them and Ricky Dozan. So this, I mean, clearly he is a national hero in North Korea.
Inoki too far from the ropes to try and get the break that way. He's now trying to pull the leg of Flair out of the figure 4, and it looks like he's going to be successful.
Inoki so quick, makes it to the ropes. Good defensive maneuver. The Nature Boy Ric Flair, though, very aggressive, pulls him back off the ropes before the referee could come for the break, but Inoki sets him up. He cradled him. Nature Boy Ric Flair able to get out, and Inoki in a lot of trouble here, both knees bothering.
Beautiful attempt at a small package by Inoki out of the figure 4 leg lock by Flair.
A reversal. Backslide attempt now by Antonio Inoki. And again, very difficult to maneuver with two bad wheels. The Nature Boy, able to escape, puts a boot to the side of the head of Antonio Inoki. And you heard it in both Japanese and Korean. 10 minutes have gone by in this contest, and now it is resorted to fists.
What an exchange by the two wrestling legends. Second right hand by Inoki sends Flair reeling into the mat, and he's right back up to take more punishment.
Now this is uncharacteristic of Antonio Inoki, a man who is known for his technical wrestling ability, but when you get him hot, when you get him wired, when you, well, I can't say what I want to say, get him aggravated. He's been known to throw a right hand or two, and he's throwing them now at the Nature Boy Ric Flair. Ric Flair, happy to return the favor, comes back with a chop. Nature Boy is dazed. You can see it at this point. Well-placed right hand right between the eyes of the Nature Boy, and Ric Flair was down. Ric Flair in trouble here. Masao Hattori checking Ric Flair to make sure he's still conscious. Flair is conscious, and he is begging off. He has had enough of Antonio Inoki, or is he setting him up? We've seen it time and time again. The Nature Boy Ric Flair can play possum with the best of them.
Big right hands continued by Inoki to the head of Flair. Whip to the corner post.
Up and over, and down goes Ric Flair. Ric Flair, who has caught himself so many times in that maneuver, when he finds himself thrown into the corner, able to catch himself, run the length of the ring apron, and enter again with an offensive maneuver. This time, so dazed, he ended up out on the floor.
Flair trying to regroup and now gets right back into the ring. Chance for Inoki to follow up, and he calls for Flair to come out to the center of the ring.
Ric Flair's so smart. The dirtiest player in the game.
Well, he uses the referee Hattori there to block and follows up with a kick, and the tide is turned. Flair looks like he's again in control.
The Nature Boy Ric Flair now making his way up to the top rope. Inoki sees it, catches him. Flair oh no, Flair knows he's in trouble here. Flair in a lot of trouble. Inoki tosses Flair. Flair right down in the center of the ring. A man who has survived plane crashes. A man who has survived matches with Big Van Vader in a lot of trouble. Fortunately for Ric Flair, Inoki came up short of the drop kick. 1, 2, and the Nature Boy Ric Flair able to roll the shoulder. Had Inoki connected with that drop kick, this match would be over.
Flair able to kick out again from the pinning attempt by Inoki.
Fatigue now a factor, and the dirtiest player in the game with a right hand of the solar plexus. And now, going after the elder statesman Antonio Inoki. The Nature Boy Ric Flair has Inoki pinned in the corner. Delivers a right hand, but eats a right hand. One to the chest, one to the forehead. And now, it's the Nature Boy Ric Flair going up top, while Antonio Inoki drops down to the lower ribs. Ric Flair with an uppercut to the midsection. Might have caught the solar plexus because Inoki's in trouble here.
Big slam by Flair, plants him in the center of the ring. And he's going to try apparently that knee drop again. This time drives an elbow instead, right onto the neck of Inoki.
Ric Flair going for the pinfall. Inoki still fresh, able to roll the shoulder. Inoki trying to make it to his base, trying to be in a position to generate some offense here, because right now he is a defensive wrestler, and he's a defensive wrestler on the receiving end of some punishment from the Nature Boy Ric Flair. Now Flair showing some fatigue.
Flair with a back suplex, but he's unable to follow up with a pinfall attempt, and both men are on their backs.
1, 2.
Having a lot of respect for Ric Flair, but I think Mr. Inoki is got the resilience and conditioning over Ric Flair.
Well, take into consideration also that Ric Flair had to fly halfway around the world to get to Pyongyang, North Korea, where Antonio Inoki had a 2-hour flight. Jet lag certainly a factor here. Not making excuses for anybody, but anybody that's made the trip knows it's a big... Oh,
great
look at that.
cartwheel kick.
Cartwheel kick right to the temple.
That patented kick by Inoki, now up to the top with a knee drop.
And look at Inoki turn it on.
Amazing speed and resilience by Antonio Inoki. Jump ground kick.
Jump back leg round kick right to the side of the head, and I do believe Ric Flair was out, and that was it.
I had no question at all he was going to be victorious. Although I think Antonio Inoki took a chance competing with picking his opponent as Ric Flair, and knowing that, as you said, the dirtiest man in wrestling. I want to know what's going to happen here. Is he going to shake hands?
Well, a lot of people were wondering the same thing, and I think one of the things that, and again, not making any excuses for Ric Flair, because this is not a guy that wrestling fans here in the United States are exactly in love with. But when you look at the reality of the situation, Mike, you're looking at a guy who, number one, had come off layoff from October to the end of April. That certainly had to be a factor. You also had to take into consideration the jet lag. So
sounds like excuses.
No, it's not excuses, it's a fact. The Nature Boy Ric Flair. Now at this point, a lot of people thought the Nature Boy Ric Flair going after Inoki was pretty sure that the Nature Boy, and I gotta tell you, I'm not sure Rick knew at that given moment exactly how he was going to react. Of course, being surrounded by about 685 pounds of Japanese wrestlers would have a tendency to kind of change your mind if you had any bad thoughts, too.
Almost a stare down between the two right before the handshake as Flair congratulates Inoki for the win.
Ric Flair told me after this match he wanted a rematch, and he wanted it in the United States. We'll see if it happens.
That can be arranged, I'm sure.
I want to thank all of you for joining us for this historic event, Collision in Korea. It's been a pleasure to bring it to you from my broadcast partner, a good friend and a man who, as I have said in the past, has his finger on the pulse of the international wrestling scene, Mr. Mike today. Mr. Kazuo Ishikawa, thank you for joining us, and it was certainly a pleasure to be in Tokyo and in Pyongyang, North Korea with you. And before we leave, we're going to leave you with more sights and more sounds of this historic event in Pyongyang, North Korea. Thanks for joining us, everybody.